So I think from a South African budget perspective, in terms of the government's fiscus, things are quite tight at the moment, and you've seen this in the medium term budget statement which was released by Pravin Gordhan recently, where effectively an upshot of it is that they're trying to curb government expenditure by public officials. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavour, and it's a symptom of a very, very narrow tax base, but effectively they're trying to cut about 2 billion rands worth of expenditure from government officials in terms of travelling overseas, limiting the kinds of cars that people can buy in terms of people employed in public office. But at the end of the day, it's an 800 billion rand budget that we have. So 2 billion rand in the big scheme of things, I'm not sure it's going to be all that effective. I mean, it certainly helps at the margin and it sends the right message, but ultimately I think that more needs to be done on that space. So from a tax-based perspective in South Africa, I think there are some warning signs to take heed of from a longer term perspective. I think a lot of people intuitively know that the tax base in South Africa is very narrow, but it's useful to delve into some numbers to actually contextualize for people what it ultimately means. If you look at South Africa now, we've got 5.1 million taxpayers in this country. Personal income tax accounts for about 30 to 35% of the total tax take of 800 billion rand. And within that number, within that 5.1 million people, you've got 337,000 individuals that account for 49% of personal income tax. So that's a significant skew towards an upper income bracket. And even if we can take it one step further and say that 75,000 individuals account for 29% of the total personal income tax take of the country. And that's the same as saying that 75,000 people account for 6 to 7% of the total tax take in the country as a whole. If you include VAT and all those other numbers, it's not their VAT contribution, it's just their personal income tax contribution of the total tax bill. And that's, to contextualize that effectively means that for every one of those individuals that's paying that tax, they're supporting the fiscal needs of about 44 individuals. Now that's surely not a sustainable situation longer term. So I think that's the concern I would have about how do we get more tax out of the system. And to place further colour on this issue, if GDP growth estimates fall short of what we're expecting in the next couple of years, either we have to save ourselves wealthy as a country and reduce the deficit that way, or we have to raise further taxes. And the issue with raising further taxes is that this narrow tax base makes that problematic, because in essence we estimate that if you move the top marginal tax rate from 40% to 45%, you're only raising 5 billion rands, which is less than 1% of the total tax bill of the country currently. Yet you hurt that income base very, very heavily, and I think it's in essence killing the goose that lays the golden egg. At the same time, just to put it into context, a 1 percentage point change in VAT on the upside would raise 3 times the amount, more like 15 billion, which is significant, but I think politically would be very, very difficult to stomach. And I think that it's unlikely that you'd see a move of that nature. So I think the point I'd make is that we're going to find it fairly tricky to find more sources of revenue in South Africa, and I think that the fiscus or the fiscal authorities will prove ever more creative in raising tax from the wealthy.